Hello, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well. This week, we're going to concentrate on the endocrine system, which is a system of glands inside your body which create hormones, chemicals that are made by the glands and secreted into your bloodstream. Hence, they stay in your body, and that's why it's called endocrine, which means inside. You also have glands, like your tear glands and your sweat glands, which actually secrete materials to the outside of your body. Today, we're going to talk about the endocrine glands. And the first one I'd like to talk about is the pituitary gland. Has two parts. There's an anterior pituitary, which secretes hormones into your blood, and a posterior pituitary, which takes hormones from the hypothalamus and then secretes them into your blood. The posterior pituitary doesn't make any of its own hormones. So we're going to take a look now at the hormones made by the pituitary, the anterior pituitary, the front part of it. Growth hormone is one. It's human growth hormone, and what it does is it stimulates your body to grow. It makes your muscles and bones get bigger as you age, and also helps you to heal if you have injuries. Prolactin is a hormone that is made by the anterior pituitary, which will stimulate the glands in a woman's breast to make milk so she can feed her baby. Follicle stimulating hormone, or FSH, is actually a hormone made by the anterior pituitary gland, which stimulates your ovaries and testes to form gametes. Gametes are eggs and sperm. You can't have a baby unless the FSH is there. And by the way, that's how the birth control pill works. It turns off your FSH production, so you don't make any eggs if you're a girl. Thyroid stimulating hormone is just what it sounds like. It's a hormone that stimulates your thyroid gland to make its hormones. So you can see here that the pituitary gland is actually called the master gland because it controls other glands. ACTH, or adrenocorticotropin, is another hormone made by the anterior pituitary. That one stimulates your adrenal glands, and we'll talk about that one when we get to them. And luteinizing hormones are also involved in reproduction. They help you make your sex hormones and help the egg come out of the ovary. That's the anterior pituitary gland. Now, prolactin, like I said, is it stimulates the woman to make milk when she has a baby. So you can see here that that's going on right there. She's feeding her baby with milk. Growth hormone, you can see sometimes it's fed to cattle, and you can see what it does if you have too much growth hormone. If you have too little growth hormone, then you are very small. And you can see there's a very small little girl there, and some dwarfism going on in the other picture. Those are people who have a deficiency in human growth hormone made by the pituitary gland. You could also make too much growth hormone, and here's a fella. His name is Robert Waddick, and he was 8 feet 11 before he died. And you can see there he's actually touching a clock above an elevator in probably a hotel. And you can see how tall he is compared to the other people. That's what happens if you have too much growth hormone. The adrenocorticotropin, that's a very important one. That stimulates your adrenal glands to make their hormones, one of which is cortisol. And cortisol is secreted when you have a lot of stress in your life. And what it does, it raises your blood pressure, and it affects your sympathetic nervous system to give you the ability to fight or run. It makes your blood pressure go up. It increases the glucose levels in your blood, gives you all kinds of energy. But it says also that if you are under stress almost all the time, not necessarily by something that is dangerous, but by your job or your home situation or whatever, you could actually gain weight if you create too much cortisol, which is the stress hormone. It keeps your sympathetic nervous system active and gets everything going, except your digestive system. Remember, the digestive system is something that slows down when you're upset. So that is why you can gain weight, because you're not digesting your food properly. Then we get to the follicle stimulating hormone. That lady is called the octomom. She's had kids at once because what happened was she wasn't letting her eggs out of her ovary, and so they were building up in there. And I guess the doctors gave her some follicle stimulating hormone, and that allowed the eggs to come out. And all 8 of them that came out at once were fertilized by sperm. So all those kids are fraternal twins. Then we have the posterior lobe, the back of the pituitary. The back of the pituitary does not make any hormones. It is the hypothalamus above it does, and 2 hormones go through a little tube down into the posterior part of the pituitary, the back part, and then they're secreted into the bloodstream. One of them is oxytocin. Oxytocin stimulates your smooth muscles to contract. Those are the ones in your stomach and your intestines, and in your bladder, and if you're a girl, in the uterus. It also stimulates the mammary glands to make the milk. It also works with the prolactin. And then antidiuretic hormone is very, very important. That one is made, again, by the hypothalamus and secreted down into the posterior pituitary, which then puts it into the bloodstream. But what that does is it prevents you from making too much urine. Your kidneys are very, very powerful. You could actually pee yourself to death if they work at full blast. So the antidiuretic hormone controls how much urine or how much water actually your kidneys are going to take out of your body. It helps the kidneys to reabsorb a lot of that water that it takes out and not pee it all out. So that way you stay alive. Antidiuretic hormone is called that because diuretic means to pee, and antidiuretic means against peeing. So you're going to be not making as much urine if you make the antidiuretic hormone, and that would be healthy for you. Making too much, it would actually make you have dehydration. Then we get to the posterior pituitary hormones, oxytocin. That's the one that, again, helps the milk come down into the breasts and helps the woman have contractions during childbirth, because contractions are smooth muscle, and we said that oxytocin stimulates your smooth muscles to contract. There are times when a doctor will give you pitocin, which is a type of oxytocin on purpose to get your uterus to contract more than it's really doing, and that will induce labor and have the baby come out a little sooner. The posterior pituitary also, again, makes ADH, or antidiuretic hormone, also known as vasopressin. And what it does, it regulates your water balance in your body. Too much urination, like it says here, can lead to dehydration. And so ADH causes the kidneys to conserve water, so you don't pee too much. The thyroid gland now. The thyroid gland is located in your neck around your trachea. It looks like a letter H, and there's 2 lobes of it, one on either side. And what it does, it makes 2 hormones. And you'll see here what they are. You have thyroid, thyroxin, and calcitonin. Thyroxin is a hormone that stimulates your metabolism. It makes your body burn food and use oxygen a little faster. So if you make a lot of thyroxin, you can eat a lot of food, and you will not gain a lot of weight because you'll burn it up, and you'll have actually lots of energy. If it's just the opposite, if you have hypothyroidism, which means not enough thyroxin, that means that you will tend to burn your food a little slower, and some of it that you eat, if you eat a little bit too much, will actually be stored as fat under your body. So the thyroid has a lot to do with weight gain and energy. That's the thyroxin, very important. Calcitonin, the other one that's made by the thyroid, prevents the calcium from coming out of your bones. That means that it makes sure that the cells that take the calcium from your bones and give it to your blood don't take too much out. The thyroxin, by the way, that hormone contains the element iodine, and that's why sometimes you need a little teeny bit of iodine in your diet. And we don't really get iodine in a lot of things that we eat. So if you look at the salt that you buy, A lot of times the salt says that it's iodized, which means that the company puts a little bit of iodine in the salt so that when you salt your food, you actually get the small amount of iodine that you need, and you will be able to make enough thyroxine. If you don't, the thyroid gland swells and you get something called a goiter, and your neck looks like it has a big bulge in it. I'll show you a picture of that in a few minutes. The parathyroids are glands that are found on the thyroid gland, on the back part. There's 4 of them, and they make parathyroid hormone, very simple. And what they do is the opposite. Instead of inhibiting calcium coming out of the bones, they stimulate it. So here we have a thing where we have one thing working against the other. And that's very common in your body, where you have, one thing wants to go one way and the other thing wants to go another way. And that way you have a little homeostasis. You have a little balance. You're taking calcium from your bones all the time using those cells, osteoclasts that are in your bones, to feed the calcium into your blood, because you need calcium for your muscle contractions and your nervous system to work properly. You want to make sure that when you release the calcium from your bones, which is what the parathyroid hormones do, the calcitonin prevents too much of it coming out. So you have a nice little balance there between the two. Now you have the goiter. This is a picture of what happens if you don't have enough iodine in your diet. This is usually from third world countries or countries that are very poor and have a very poor diet. It's very rare in the United States that you'd see something like this today. The parathyroid glands, again, make parathyroid hormone, and they take calcium from the bones to make it available in the blood. And then the thyroid, the calcitonin that it makes will make sure that doesn't happen too fast. Here we have the pancreas. Now, the pancreas is found right behind the stomach, and it actually is 2 kinds of glands. It's an endocrine gland and exocrine one, because it makes not only hormones that are put into the bloodstream, which are those little purple dots that you see there. It says endocrine portion of pancreas. The ones that are connected to that blue duct, they're making digestive enzymes. The enzymes that actually help you digest your food. And we'll talk about those later on in a couple of weeks. But those enzymes, you can see, are pouring into your intestine to help you digest carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. But the other job the pancreas has is from those little dots. They call them islets of Langerhans. And what they do is they make insulin and glucagon, 2 hormones that, again, work against each other. So to make sure one doesn't work too far from one side and the other one from the other side. Here's what they do. They call beta cells in your islets, and those little islets of Langerhans in the pancreas. They make your insulin. And what insulin does is it helps you reduce the amount of sugar in your bloodstream. It takes any extra glucose that you have in your blood and helps it go into the cells for burning up by the mitochondria, and also be stored in your liver as a polysaccharide called glycogen, very much like starch. So what happens is that if you have enough insulin, you will never have too much glucose in your blood, and it will stay where it's supposed to be. When you need more glucose, or if your glucose level goes down because you're not eating enough, or if you find yourself under stress, the alpha cells in the pancreas islands will make glucagon. Glucagon stimulates the glycogen breakdown in the liver to turn back into glucose. So you can actually increase the glucose level in your blood. So insulin decreases the glucose level, and the glucagon increases it. And in the process, you're basically keeping the glucose, at the levels they're supposed to be all the time. Now, if you have diabetes, you probably don't make enough insulin, and so the glucose level in your blood will constantly be going up, especially if you eat a lot of carbohydrates. And so that could be a problem, because it will screw up your osmotic potential inside your blood and cause all your organs basically to be damaged by that. You'll have too much glucose in your liver. It'll be too strong. The blood will be too sweet. And you have problems with everything. You could have problems with your eyes, with your brain, with your heart. So that's why diabetes is bad. And one of the things they do about that, of course, they give you a shot of insulin so that you can control your sugar and lower it in your blood. All of these things you see on this slide are symptoms of diabetes, and you can see some pretty bad. This is a sore that you can get, and that's just not on your foot, but could be in lots of places. And all these other things happen, especially thirst. You get very, very thirsty. You pee an awful lot when you have diabetes. Now, the adrenal glands make that cortisol I was telling you about, the stress hormone. When you are stressed, you make a lot of cortisol in your adrenal glands, and that makes you hyper. It makes you ready to fight. It gives you energy, and that's great, but it slows down your digestion too. So that means that you can survive a situation where you're afraid or angry, but it's not healthy to keep your body that way. So you have to keep the corticoids or the cortisols down to right levels and bring them back down. That's what the parasympathetic nervous system does. It calms you down. The adrenal gland has two parts. It has an outside and inside. The outside is called the cortex, and the inside is called the medulla. The cortex make the cortisol I was telling you about, the mineral corticoids and the glucocorticoids. They're the things that increase your blood pressure, make more glucose come out of your liver, give you energy, raise your heartbeat, all of those, and breathing rate, all those things that happen when you're upset. They also make a small amount of the outside part, the cortex, of male and female sex hormones. You can make some sex hormones in your adrenal glands as well. Not as much as in your ovaries and testes, but some. The medulla in the middle, that's the one that makes epinephrine and norepinephrine, which is really known as adrenaline. And again, that speeds you up when you're upset as well. It'll make your heart beat faster and so on. So you can see the adrenal glands have a lot to do with stress, tension, anger, fear, all those things. And it's a good thing you have a parasympathetic nervous system to slow that down. Then we get to this slide here. It shows you what the medulla does. The medulla of the adrenal gland makes adrenaline or epinephrine, same thing. And that does all of these things. It increases your blood pressure and breathing rate, and gives you more sugar in your blood, heart rate, all those things that you need to survive if you're in a situation where you're scared or angry. The corticoids at the cortex they're the ones that can also increase your blood sugar as well. And that's important because it gives you more energy in your mitochondria. It's more fuel in the fire, and you get more ATP that way, and therefore you have more energy. But it will also increase your blood pressure. Now, one of the things that you want to tell about corticoids here is that they are also inflammatory agents. If you have inflammatory situation, if you're inflamed somewhere, the corticoids calm that down. So if you have an inflamed tendon or something like that, sometimes a doctor would actually give you a shot of a corticoid, and that will almost instantly reduce the inflaming situation in that tendon or that ligament. So that's the adrenal gland. Then we get to this. This is just an EpiPen. EpiPen is adrenaline, and just showing you what's happening with the system where we have to pay for these things. It used to be about $249, and now it's $615, but it has gone down from that lately. This is not a graph that's up to date, but it says here the price rose from $57 in 2007 to over $500, and it only costs about $1 to put the adrenaline into the EpiPen, plus the price of the actual pen itself. So right now you can see the pharmaceutical companies are making a lot of money on this one. But as I said, that price has been going very, very much down lately. Now we get to the ovaries and testes. Ovaries are the female reproductive system's organs, and the testes are the male reproductive system organs. The ovaries make estrogen and progesterone. I will talk about the follicle and the corpus luteum on the last time we have together. This is going to be the reproductive system. But for now, just know that the ovaries make estrogens and progesterones. Both of those are female sex hormones. And what they do is they turn little girls into women after they go through puberty. Very powerful. And also control the woman's period, when she makes eggs, when she has her period, all of those things throughout the month. They're all controlled by the estrogens and progesterones, and we'll talk about those later on. Testosterone obviously is made by men, and what that does, it helps them make sperm and turns little boys into men and when they go through puberty. Interestingly enough, a woman will make all three. A woman will make estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, but just more estrogen and progesterone. A man will make all three as well, but we just make a lot more testosterone. You get older, especially past menopause, women make less estrogen and progesterone, and our testosterone levels start to rise. And so that's why if you see some older ladies, they have little mustaches and lower voices, and they're basically turning into little men. But that is, what happens. Testosterone is that powerful. It goes up when women get older, and it lowers the female sexual hormones when she gets older. Now, this one here, the steroids, remember, these anabolic steroids, these things like testosterone are what they call anabolic. Of course, they cause things to get bigger. They cause the muscles to get bigger and stronger and so on. And that's fine normally if you make enough testosterone as a little boy, and you're going to start building your muscles as you turn into a man. And that's perfectly normal. But some people take extra anabolic steroids, especially testosterone, to increase that so that they get bigger and stronger still. This is a picture of Mark McGwire, who is a baseball player, and he hit many, many home runs, but he was artificially strong. He took steroids. The hormones are very, very powerful things, especially the ones that are lipids like this. These are steroid hormones. The anabolic steroids are called anabolic because, remember, anabolism was a building up process, and it builds up muscles and makes you stronger and faster. But remember, you have muscles and organs too, and you don't want your heart muscle to get too thick either, and that can cause issues with your heart. And there's a lot of things that can happen to you badly if you take too many steroids artificially. And some other glands, as we finish up here, the pineal gland is found right smack in the middle of the brain. We talked about that last week. It makes a hormone called melatonin, and what that does is it gets into your bloodstream and causes you to get sleepy at night, and then wakes you up. The gland will wake you up also in the morning at about the same time. So you get sleepy about the same time every night, and you wake up about the same time every morning. It's kind of like an alarm clock, and that's the pineal gland. Melatonin is also found in like the dark meat of turkey and chicken, and also in milk. Then we get to this one, the thymus and the tonsils. Those are two glands. The thymus is found in your chest, and what it does is it stimulates your lymphocytes. Lymphocytes are white blood cells, so it helps you fight disease. It makes a hormone called thymosin, which causes those lymphocytes or white blood cells to become mature and work, and therefore help you fight disease. The tonsils do a similar thing in your throat. They are organs that actually part of the lymphatic system, and they help you fight disease. They have a connection with your white blood cells. Then you get to the thymus. Now the thymus is very, very small in adults and much, much bigger in babies. And the reason for that is because babies really don't have much immunity, and so they need that thymus, which has to do with immunity, and white blood cells work very strongly for them. As we get older and we build up immunity against many, many things, we don't need the thymus to work so much for us. So it actually shrinks and gets smaller as you get older. Then we get to the last one here. This is your stomach and intestines. Your stomach makes a hormone called gastrin and another one called ghrelin. Gastrin actually stimulates your stomach to make gastric juice. So when you are hungry and you smell the food and you didn't eat it yet, but you still you know you're going to be eating soon, and it smells good coming from the kitchen or from the restaurant, your stomach will start making gastrin, and that will start making the gastric juice in your stomach, creating the chemicals and the hormones and the acid and all the things you need to help digest the food that's going to be coming. Ghrelin, that's the one that makes you have an appetite. It makes you hungry. It makes you want to eat. And then you have your intestines. The intestines are going to secrete what they call CCK, And what that is one that helps your intestines start working for digestion. It stimulates your gallbladder to release bile, which helps you digest fats, and that goes into your intestines to help mix with the food and help digest fats. And remember, the pancreas makes all the enzymes that you need to digest your food, just about. Ones to digest proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, and also a base. A base means it neutralizes acid. Remember, the acid is in your stomach, and we'll talk about why that's there in a couple weeks. But when that stomach empties into your intestine, the intestine doesn't have any protection against the acids out of your stomach. So coming from the pancreas, which is stimulated by that CCK hormone made by the intestine, the pancreas will make a base to neutralize the acid in the intestine, so that when the pancreas pours that into your intestine, the acid doesn't hurt your intestine. And finally, we have fat cells of all places, adipose cells. These adipose cells make a hormone called leptin. And what leptin does is the opposite of ghrelin. Ghrelin increases your appetite. Leptin decreases your appetite. So as you eat, you start making more and more leptin, and therefore you start feeling full. And when you look at the food, it doesn't look as good anymore, and you don't want to eat anymore. That again, they work against each other to help you have homeostasis, even in how much you eat. It makes you not eat too much, and when you are hungry, the ghrelin will make you want to eat what you need to eat. Leptin will reduce your appetite. So if you look at this last slide now, this is two mice. The big one here was unable to use the hormone leptin. So he never had his appetite decreased. So all he did was eat and eat and eat and eat. The ghrelin made him hungry all the time, and the leptin didn't work against it. So he got a lot of fat. And then this one, of course, was making those two hormones, leptin and ghrelin, just about right. And so he was, he felt full, and he stopped eating when he did. So anyway, that's the hormones for you. I hope you enjoyed that. And make sure you see these things and do your homeworks. There's only a few weeks left, and we have one more quiz, and that's about it. And not to mention your paper. And some of you already handed in your paper, and they look pretty good. So remember to do all those things on time. And next week we'll talk about the digestive system. Okay, bye now.